Hey everyone, it's BlueLizardJello, and welcome to episode 7 of Everything Possible in Dark Souls 1. And we find ourselves today in Firelink Shrine, but something seems to be amiss. The Firekeeper is absent and we cannot light the bonfire, so let's go down and check on Anastasia and find out what happened. Well, right away we notice that Knight Lautrec is gone, but why would his absence have anything to do with the bonfire being out? What's this shiny over here? The Dingy set, worn by Anastasia the Firekeeper, including a blood-stained skirt. That can't be a good sign. And also a black eye orb. Seems like something afoul has happened with Miss Anastasia, and we're gonna have to find out exactly what happened, but that won't happen until we reach Anne Orlando. But first, we have a few other people that we need to talk about, including the Crestfallen Warrior.
It snores, and its breath is lethal.
Because we've rung both bells of awakening, you want to talk to the Crestfallen Warrior and exhaust his dialogue if you want to advance his quest. It's really only a two-part quest. We run into him now, and we'll run into him a little bit later in the Nulanda Ruins. Maybe not such a great state.
Oh, hello there.
And you know what? I actually realized that I forgot to show you where you get the Pyromancy Flame. After rescuing Laurentius and he comes back to Firelink Shrine, talking to him and agreeing to his wishes will actually grant you a free Pyromancy Flame. And you also want to upgrade your flame to plus 10 in order to advance his quest, which involves Quelana, Quelag's sister. And now we have King Seeker Frampt, one of the primordial serpents. I had mentioned him previously when I said that you could actually feed him shards in order to get different variations of the shards. And now that we've rung both bells, he is actually here for us to talk to. So we'll say yes. Go through his dialogue, and then once we speak to him again, we'll be given the option to feed him different things, shards and items. And I'm actually going to go ahead and do that. So if we feed him a green Titanite shard, it'll give us 5 Titanite shards. And if we feed him a Titanite chunk, we will get 3 large Titanite shards. The other thing to consider is that if you have any items you truly do not want, or if you have any duplicate items, you can feed them to Frampt for pure souls. Next we have Griggs, and now that we have intelligence of 10, we can actually speak to him and buy his sorceries. So of course we'll say yes. And then when we go in here, we are going to buy both Fall Control and Magic Weapon. Fall Control will make it so that we don't take any damage on a non-lethal fall. And Magic Weapon is a buff for our weapons that'll give us 80% of the Catalyst Magic Adjust as extra weapon damage. He also sells numerous other sorceries, he sells a Catalyst, and he sells a couple of rings. And if you want to advance Grig's storyline, then you do have to buy all of his items. But I urge you not to do so until you've already rescued Big Hat Logan and placed the Lord Vessel, because if you do that and you follow those steps, you can actually get a duplicate of a few spells that you may want down the line. And then lastly we have Petrus. Now we didn't actually see Rhea on this character, but Petrus was in charge of watching over his lady, or milady as he says, fedoraless of course, and now he doesn't know where she is, or supposedly he doesn't know where she is. So we've talked to him, we're going to run into him again, and we're going to try to find out what happened to Rhea in a few episodes. But here we are back at the bonfire above Andre. Just a quick look at the gear. We have our Claymore plus 10, I have upgraded the Longbow to plus 10. I switched out a couple of pieces of armor, just for Faction Soul's sake. And now I'm going to switch out to the Ring of the Evil Eye, and I'm going to keep the Rusted Iron Ring equipped for something that's going to come up in Sen's Fortress. And as usual, look at my stats, feel free to pause if you want to take a closer look. But here we go into Sen's Fortress, getting a nice view of it from below. Sen's Fortress, also known as Sen's Playhouse, or Funhouse to many players, is full of traps. But before we even get in, over on that ledge, we would have run into Sigmire of Katarina had we come here when the gate was still closed, but we'll run into him in just a few minutes. But you can see this pressure plate here. Sen's Fortress is full of traps that, while deadly, they can be easily avoided, or even used to your advantage, like this one. Trigger it and let one of the man serpents come after you, and as long as you can get him right into the center, it might actually kill him for you. We'll see many more of these man serpents to come. Over here in the corner, behind these jars, we get the Soul of a Brave Warrior. This is our biggest hard soul to date, and the Soul of a Brave Warrior will give you 5,000 souls when consumed. And here's just a quick look at some of what Sen's Fortress has to offer. So we have these swinging pendulum blades that will not only do massive damage, but will send you careening off of their bridge. And then if you take a look down in these tar pits, there's a Titanite demon, or a prowling demon. But he's also not alone. And we're going to see that face to face very, very shortly. So making our way across the bridge, you want to stop below this here bridge above you, because there is a man-serpent mage above us that will cast lightning down and could potentially knock us off. So this area is perfectly safe. Get past this other pendulum blade. We're going to go up and deal with that mage, and then we're going to backtrack, because we're going to be dropping down to get a few other items. Now, Sen's Fortress can be a bit convoluted. It's not as difficult as the entrance to Blighttown, but there are some items that are a little bit out of the way, and some do require backtracking. You can see directly behind this mage here, another pressure plate. Dealing with that momentarily. But from here, we can just simply drop down. And below us, if we get a good look, you can actually see that there are 3 man-serpent mages below us. But with a well-placed plunging R2, we can turn that into only 2 mages very quickly. And it's a shame that I didn't handle this better, because I already had 33% of the mages down. Shouldn't have been as difficult as I made it. But unfortunately, the best laid plans of mice and men. I don't actually know the remainder of that quote, nor do I know who said it. But if I find out, I'll put it in the description, and then I'll quote who said it, and then I'll quote myself saying it, kind of like Michael Scott in The Office. So here we are with the mages down. We can see that Titanite demon we saw earlier, and with my upgraded longbow and just standard arrows, we're going to go ahead and just cheese this one. Fortunately, we can get almost maximum damage out of our longbow, not quite, but almost, and he won't actually aggro at all. So we are free to just go ahead and pepper him with arrows at our leisure, and wait for him to expire. Like milk. It's gone bad. It smells like eggs. With him down, we'll go ahead and jump down, and this is why we have the rusted iron ring still equipped. This tar pit is very sticky, and you will run just like you would have in the Blighttown Swamp if you didn't have the ring equipped. So here we have Titanite, or Prowling Demon number 2, and here you can actually see the effectiveness of the bows increasing as he gets closer. Bows have diminishing returns on their damage. The further away an enemy is, the less damage you'll be doing. So we grab ourselves a Demon Titanite there. And straight ahead on this corpse, we have a Soul of a Brave Warrior, another one. And then we have a Scythe, which is technically not a scythe. If you actually look at the style of the weapon, this would actually be a Bardiche. But this is a great quality weapon with low requirements. At only 10 strength and 12 dexterity, you can two-hand this weapon. And there will be, unfortunately, a quick cut here. I had to quit out because, well, I had to go to work. But we're back, and we do have 2 more Titanite demons to deal with. Now, these ones actually have a little bit higher HP than their counterparts in the room before, so it's going to take me a little while to kill them. Now, because you've already seen me kill one with melee in the room below Andre, I'm not going to make you sit through all of this. I did try out Magic Weapon. Unfortunately, my Catalyst is pretty weak, and the extra damage was almost negligible. But what I'll do is I'll show you just a few seconds of each fight, including that pouncing attack, and then I'm just going to cut to the end where I kill them. Because I at least wanted to make sure that you knew that I did kill them both. But if you are in no need for Demon Titanite, I would go ahead and skip these 2. They're not hiding any items behind them, so Demon Titanite and 3,000 souls is all you're going to get per each. So 1 down, 1 more to go. I should have used the Titanite catch pull against them. Wonder if they're weak to their own weapon. Heal up, and then we're going to go ahead and cut to the end here in just a second. here he is done. Make sure that we grab his Demon Titanite. And unfortunately, the very first Demon Titanite that dropped from the first Titanite demon we killed was actually lost to me. And the reason is, as I said, I had to cut the video and actually exit the game. Any drops will be lost when you exit the game. So, sadly, I lost out on Demon Titanite. That's okay. There are ways to farm it later on. But while we're down here in the tar pits, we want to go ahead and head into this corner where there is a ladder for us to escape. This is me actually being slightly confused as to where the Demon Titanite went. It's kind of like Johnny Depp looking for his rum. He knows where it went, but he really didn't want to accept reality. I would channel my inner Johnny Depp and try an impersonation, but that's just one I don't have down. Climbing this ladder here, stop and grab this large soul of a proud knight, and then hit this suspicious looking wall, and prepare to climb an even longer ladder. This time without even any view, because we're in this narrow passage almost like a chimney, so really you can look at your hips or your rump. That's really all you got. Now up at the top here you can see these large chains on the ground and this giant standing next to them. In the cutscene after we rang the bell after Quelaag, we saw giants pulling on these chains to raise the gate. Well, here's that giant. So while we appreciate what he did for us as far as letting us into Sen's Fortress, he is holding on to something that we would actually like to claim as our own, so we'll go ahead and take him out. Now for these, I don't recommend locking on. Instead, run through their open legs and get behind them, and try to get them to do this sweeping punch attack. Now if they decide to stomp or kick, it does get a little bit more dangerous for this tactic, but typically you can bait them into the sweeping punch. Or even just the ground pound like that. And with him down, we'll go ahead and pick up the Titanite chunk that he left for us. So now we appreciate him opening the gate, and we appreciate him giving us a Titanite chunk. He's a swell guy. I just think that this is a fantastic view. Absolutely beautiful. Moving right along. Fortunately, we don't have to climb down this ladder. We can just slide right down it. And now we're going to hop out the window where we picked up that Soul of a Proud Knight. And now we can actually continue with Sen's Fortress. Fighting those Titanite demons in the tar pit is one of the most difficult parts of Sen's Fortress, arguably the most difficult. So, as long as you can pay attention and take them out carefully, or just skip them altogether, Sen's Fortress really isn't as bad as some people make it out to be. But Sen's Fortress also very much so rewards the observant. For example, as we've already pointed out, this pressure plate takes no stamina whatsoever, so as long as you have 100% physical resistance shield, you'll be just fine. It was guarding 2 large Titanite shards, so absolutely worth setting that trap off. And we have this man serpent who's just kind of taking a nap against the wall. We'll be dealing with him later on, because we want something to happen, and we have to trigger it, but we can't trigger it just yet. And that large stone ball that just took out, or nearly took out, this man serpent may give you a small idea of what's going to happen. But we're going to go ahead and let that ball do its job. Fantastic. And now, even though we didn't see him outside of the gate, we can actually go and talk to Sigmire of Katarina, also known affectionately as the Onion Bro. Anyway, rushing through his dialogue, we just want to make sure that we exhaust it, find out what's wrong. He suggests that maybe he would try rolling, but then he would get all dizzy and his head would spin. So we're going to have to help him out. Sigmire's quest is all about helping him out of tight spots. And right now, he can't get anywhere because of this rolling ball. So we have to find a way of getting this ball to be no longer an issue for Sigmire, so then we can meet up with him later on in the game in Anor Londo. Now, I did not time this run well at all, but provided that you start running when the ball has just passed you, you can make it to this alcove just fine. Before we go into this fog gate, we're going to run up here with where this man serpent mage was, take him out. And we do have this chest here, but we're going to take a quick look at the chest before opening it. First, take notice of the chain. The chain on this one on the right hand side curls around. It also seems to be shut tight. And inside is a ring of steel protection, which will give us plus 50 to our physical defense. So remember what that chest looked like, because we're going to compare it to another chest in just a few minutes here, one that should look different, again, to the observant. Waiting for the ball to drop again, just like New Year's. And then before we actually go into that fog gate, we are going to hop down, and on this corpse here, we have a shotl. Now the shotl is a great weapon to have in your arsenal, especially if you're going to be into PvP and you're fighting someone with a shield. The R2, or the strong attack of the shotl, ignores the shielded players. You saw when I picked it up, it actually has a curved blade to it, and the idea is that when you slash at an opponent, the curved blade will actually go around the shield and still hit the player behind. And now, go ahead and enter this fog gate. Moving very slowly because there is yet another pressure plate. And we saw something moving behind it. We have another man-serpent warrior. Unfortunately, they do not trigger the pressure plates, or else that would have worked out fantastically. So after my shoddy playmanship fighting him first, go ahead and take him out with ease. And as long as you sprint and you get to the side right away, those 3 arrows will miss you completely. But you have to be quick and get to the side. Or turn around and block. Either one works. Here I am actually resorting to humanity already. There is another bonfire in Sense Fortress, but it is still a ways off, so I want to make sure we stay healed. So here we're going to run up this ramp. We're not going all the way. Instead, we want to drop down about halfway where this mage is. Get a backstab on him. There's a large soul of a proud knight on this corpse. And through this passageway, we have a corpse here with several items on it. It has the Black Sorcerer set, which is worn by the secret sorcerers of the Vinheim Dragon School. These sorcerers include Griggs of Vinheim, who is currently residing in Firelink Shrine, as well as Rickard the Blacksmith, someone we haven't seen who's in New Londo. We also get the Hush sorcery. When you cast Hush, all of your movements are completely silent. A lot of people like to use this sorcery for trolling in PvP. And we're going to come over this side. We're not actually going to do anything here yet, but I wanted to show you this elevator. It seems to be covered in blood, and up top, there are spikes. So, a little bit foreboding, a little bit of forewarning, and we'll get there in just a few minutes. But first, there's a very special item that we need to get that takes some manipulation in order to pick up. So going back to where the mage was, I'm going to go through here and hop down. Now we are directly above the tar pits where the 2 Titanite demons were. And we're not going to actually kill this guy. Instead, we're just going to punish him. And this may be a punishment worse than death. Because now he's stuck on this ledge with nowhere to go. If he decides to drop down, he's dead. But he can't climb back up. I mean, he is a man-serpent after all. I don't really know what that says about one's climbing ability, but anyway. And now we have the Slumbering Dragon Crest Ring, also an item from the School of Vinheim. This ring essentially gives you a permanent cast of Hush. All of your movements will be silent, and you don't actually need to use up any attunement slots. You don't actually need to use any castings to get it. So again, just kind of backtracking a little bit. Now be careful with the traps in Sense Fortress, because after a certain amount of time, they do reset. So even though we had already triggered that trap earlier, we did have to be on guard because the pressure plate was active again. With the pressure plates, you can tell when they're active because they will again be raised. When they are deactivated, they will be nearly flush with the floor. Again, triggering that trap. And now, this time we're going to wait for this ball to go right in front of us, and then we're going to follow it. Whenever it's ready. Okay, turns out it's actually facing the wrong way. The mechanism will change direction depending on the player's location from time to time. So if that happens, you just want to come up here and push it the appropriate number of times in order to get the ball directed where you want it to go. Now as you saw there, whichever way that lever is pointed, the ball will fly in the opposite direction. And it works kind of like a pinball machine. There's a giant wooden pillar that actually knocks this ball out of place. So we will follow it, not too closely, because if you hit it from behind, you still do take damage. But once we get here, we can see that there's a wall dead ahead and there's a hole where the balls are currently falling. Now that hole doesn't actually just go into the abyss, it is finite. So what we want to do is wait patiently and let that hole fill up with balls, because the next ball that rolls over it is actually going to break that wall behind it, which will lead us to one of my favorite items in the game, something that you definitely will want to pick up if you're looking for all the items. It will take a little bit of time. Okay, there's the final ball to fill the hole, and now next one will shatter that wall for us, and we can just follow it, no problem. Now we are going to wait patiently on the side before we get that item. You can look down there, there's nothing down there but certain death. But here on this ledge, we get the covetous gold serpent ring. The covetous gold serpent ring gives you plus 200 to your item discovery without any humanity needed. If you have humanity, it does stack with it, so you can get a total of 410 item discovery, which is the maximum. Now we have another wooden chest, and if you take a look, the chain is not curled around, it's actually sticking straight out, and you can actually see it slightly moving, it's actually breathing. So you've seen me do this in Dark Souls 2 if you watch those videos, but what we're going to do is use a Lloyd's Talisman, which prevents healing, but it also puts mimics to sleep. And we can pick up the lightning spear. Now, we don't want to just let this mimic loose, because who knows what will happen to the next bystander that happens to walk by. So we are going to deal with him. Now they have a very small chance of dropping the symbol of avarice for each mimic that you kill. The symbol of avarice has the same effect as the covetous gold serpent ring, in that it will give you plus 200 to item discovery. The two do not stack. However, if you manage to find and kill all of the mimics in the vanilla game, not including the DLC, then the last mimic that you kill will have the symbol of avarice. And here's that elevator that we've already seen the top of, and because we are observant, and we noticed that there was blood on the elevator, and there were spikes at the top of the shaft, we know that we need to get off here. Because if we don't, that elevator will go all the way to the top, it will crush you, you will die, and you will be sad. The last part's not guaranteed. It really depends on your state of mind at the time. Alright, and now that we are back up top, just to give you some perspective of where we are, that is the first ramp we ran down. That is the one where Sigmire was, and now that hallway is clear, so he should be able to get by. There's another item down there that we're going to get later on in the level. And here we have a pressure plate and 4 different arrow traps. So you can stand on the furthest most edge and cause that to be triggered without being worried about the arrows at all. And now we have some more pendulum blades. You'll notice that the walkway is considerably smaller this time around, but since the blades are actually closer together, we can sprint through all of them, no problem. Here we have another man-serpent warrior. Now the man-serpents can actually drop their greatsword. It is an exact model of the one they're using, however, this is the only place you can get it. Unlike most other weapons where you can either buy it or find it as a guaranteed drop later on, this is the only place you can get their sword. Well, this is the only enemy that can drop their sword. You can also fight these in the Duke's Archives a little bit later on in the game. Another warrior to deal with, which we will, no problem. When they bite, just remember that they are going to follow it up with a slash. And typically this mage won't actually follow you down, so it's a bit unusual that he did. But no worries, you can easily dodge right underneath his lightning, which he didn't actually cast just there, so I looked foolish. But with him down, we'll go ahead and pick up another pair of large titanite shards. Sen's Fortress is a very good place to get some upgrade materials, at this stage in the game at least. Coming up these stairs, normally the mage would be guarding it, but we're going to go ahead and switch out to the Covetous Gold Serpent Ring so we can increase our drop rate. You can see on the right hand side we're now at 410, which is the maximum. And now we have a very narrow bridge. Not only do we have a very narrow bridge with blade pendulums, but we also have a mage who will knock you off if given the opportunity. But casually walk to the first set, stop in the middle, and then run right through. Easy peasy. Even if you just casually walk, the mage will actually shoot behind you. His tracking is not that great. This guy's gonna say goodnight. Goodnight. And now, you probably already noticed before, but we have 2 pressure plates here that will activate the same trap. So just to show you where they're at. And now through this fog gate, we're nearing the boss. However, we have quite a few more items to find. In fact, this episode does run rather long at about 43 minutes, so I hope you can forgive me, but I did not think that Sen's Fortress was one that actually should be split up. And here we have the Jackpot Balder. That's not actually his name, but in this case, it is, because he drops the Balder Side Sword, a rather uncommon drop, and an excellent deck straight sword. He also gives us a Balder Helm and a Titanite Shard. Pretty cool. And I would like to attribute that to me putting on the Gold Covetous Serpent Ring. Another Balder Knight here, who decides he's gonna actually troll us and do a little turtling behind his shield. No worries, we can play the waiting game. He also gives us a Titanite Shard, and then behind him in the wooden chest, we have the Flame Stone Plate Ring. So here's our first elemental ring, and this will give us plus 50 to our fire defense. We're going to meet a merchant here in Sen's Fortress in just a bit that will sell a pair of other stone plate rings that will increase other elemental defenses. Continuing on, and because we're observant, we notice that it appears that there's some sort of scorch mark on the ground. Pray tell, where could this be coming from? Ah, it's coming from that jerk at the top of the tower who's going to be lobbing these giant firebombs at us. So, if you see a scorch mark and he's not dead, don't stop. Right down here, a lot of people tend to miss his bonfire. It is the only one inside of Sen's Fortress. So, when you see that second scorch mark, look to the right. You'll see that a portion of the wall has been chipped away. And just walk carefully off. If you run, you can actually run the risk of overshooting it and falling. But walk straight off, and now you have a bonfire. When you walk out the window, it deposits you right on the other side of these arrow traps. And now once again, just sprinting past all the scorch marks, because until we deal with him, I do not recommend trying to loot any of the bodies. These are traps that were laid by the developer to try to catch unsuspecting players. I'm going to buff my Claymore with Magic Weapon because we do have another Baroniki Knight, or a Heavy Knight if you want to call him that. But with a plus 10 Magic Weapon infused Claymore, he's really not that difficult And he was kind enough to drop his Greatsword and a large Titanite Shard. It's funny, he dropped a Greatsword, but he's using a mace. Oh well. One of the inconsistencies that you'll run into when playing the Dark Souls games is that you don't always get what you want. But if you try sometimes, you might find you get a Greatsword. And now we have this gentleman wearing the Elite Knight set, which is kind of odd because he doesn't have a name, he didn't invade us. But we know from the drop that he is a named character. We've actually just killed Rickard. And we know that because we've just picked up Ricard's rapier. And I know, I just called him Rickard at first, but his name's Ricard. At least that's how he pronounced it. Inside this first chest, we have the rare Ring of Sacrifice. So this ring is just like the Ring of Sacrifice in that you will not turn hollow, you will not lose your humanity or your souls, but it has the added benefit of if you died from curse, you actually won't be cursed when you resurrect. And then next to it in the wooden chest, we have one of the few divine blessings in the game. Similar to Dark Souls 2, it is an instant 100% heal no matter what your HP is, and it will also eliminate any negative status buffs such as bleed, toxin, poison buildup that's been accumulating. But that's it for that section, so now we're going to continue on and run the treacherous path where the giant is throwing the giant firebombs at us. We're going to make our way up in order to take him out, because right now he is truly just a nuisance. But before we do that, what you want to do to make this jump is hug the left-hand side and jump at the last second. If you aren't on the left-hand side, that jump is actually impossible. You need to go to where the stone is still jutting out just a little bit. And this would be the Crestfallen Merchant. He is one of the Knights of Bereniki. Just a quick look at his wares, black firebombs and green blossoms. He has a small selection of shards. A few items here that are wielded by the Heavy Knights, or the Bereniki Knights. Small selection of arrows and bolts. He has the Katarina armor, as well as the steel armor set. And then, as I mentioned before, he has both the Thunder and the Spell Stoneplate ring, which will increase your lightning and your magical resistance by 50 respectively. And now we have a staircase that would fit Bolitarian Palace very nicely. We're going to run to the bottom. And we're going to go pick up an item we saw from the chamber that had the ball mechanism. As soon as we take care of this mage. And behind him we have the cage key. Cage key serves two purposes here in Sen's Fortress. We have a prisoner that is in a cage that we want to release, and don't worry, this time it's not Knight Lautrec. But there is also a shortcut that I failed to use, and I will apologize in advance for that, but you need the cage key in order to activate it. Running all the way back up. Make the jump, and now this time, as logic would dictate, you want to stick to the right side. There's the guy who's actually dropping the balls. That is actually what feeds the ball mechanism. If you kill him, the ball mechanism will stop for now, but as soon as you rest at a bonfire, he will respawn and it will continue. However, I'm going to point it out a little bit later on, that is a viable route that you may want to take in order to optimize the loot gathering in Sen's Fortress. Unfortunately, I do not optimize that route. The two cages in front of me, this is the shortcut that I was referring to. So we use the cage key, and if we were to step in that, it would bring us all the way down to the first floor of Sen's Fortress, where we first encounter the swinging pendulum blades. So it actually really is quite the shortcut, and one that I definitely recommend using if you need to leave Sen's Fortress for any reason. But here we are at the top, after we grab a Titanite shard from this hollow. You can see the fog gate, and you can actually see the iron golem directly through that window, which I think was a really neat touch. Over there, we will find a summon sign for a very friendly face. We'll be seeing him shortly. But at the top of the tower, this is the jerk who's throwing the firebombs. He can be very dangerous due to the small arena you have to fight him in. However, if you can stay close enough so you can bait, the only way I can call it is a tantrum. That's not it, but you'll know it when you see it. He starts whining and kicking and screaming. There it is. So here, just let him do his thing, get a few steps down or he can hit you through the wall, but as soon as he's tired himself out, just like a little infant, you can go and slaughter him and chop him to pieces. I am not suggesting that you slaughter or chop infants to pieces, by the way. I know how that sounds. I want to go on record to say that I abhor that practice. But I don't abhor the practice of getting Titanite chunks from giants. I also abhor the practice of these firebombs being completely hollow. There's nothing inside them. I don't know why they're exploding. Doesn't really make sense. But anyway, that giant does not respawn, so now we are free to go and loot the bodies in the charred areas that we saw before, and even if we rest at a bonfire, this area is now safe, at least relatively speaking. So now we have quite a bit of backtracking to do, because now that we have the cage key, there is someone we need to go rescue, and there's also an item by him that we want. But instead of taking the shortcut, we are going to make our way back manually. And the reason is there is an item along the way, or a few items along the way, that we can pick up. First, on this corpse, we have another pair of large titanite shards. And then on this next one, we have a large soul of a brave warrior. Continuing on this platform right here, you can actually make this jump over the spikes, over the spears in that wall, as long as you jump right at the last second. And you can get, wait for it, get excited, the sniper crossbow with sniper bolts. That's right, another crossbow. And this sniper crossbow, you would think, oh, well, this one must have manual aiming. It doesn't. We get a titanite shard, but that still doesn't make up for the fact that the crossbows in this game are woefully underpowered as far as aiming goes. Now, I'm going to speed this up to 300% because, well, you've already seen me do it. Plus, it looks kind of funny to run Sense Fortress at this speed. And it also sounds kind of funny. Swing, swing. But we're going to head back down to where we saw the man serpent sleeping against the wall. And we're going to do something about it. Because with this ball mechanism, we can take a look down this ramp right here, and that's where he was sleeping. So if we maneuver the mechanism in such a way so that the pinball action will shoot it down that ramp, you can actually see it knocks him over, does some damage, but more importantly, it breaks the wall behind him. So let's go ahead and move it out of the way again, because we don't want to have to compete with that giant ball when we go down there. Also, another nice attention to detail is the fact that the stairs are actually curved and rounded due to the ball repeatedly rolling down it. There's also a track on this floor that you can see, and I just think that that is a great touch. However, the designers of Sense Fortress really should stop putting up brick walls where they know the ball is going to roll. Even for temporary safety measures, it just seems like a waste. And here's the aptly named Big Hat Logan, someone that Griggs dreams of day in and day out. And we can rescue him because we have the cage key. And he's just told us, thank you so much for saving me, I'll see you next time in Firelink Shrine. And see him again we shall. Don't forget to come down here and pick up this soul of a hero, because this soul is worth a whopping 10,000 souls when consumed. Very nice. I will be speeding up the progress here again because I do have to make the long, arduous, and manual trip back to the top, but before we do that, we are going to go and take a look at where Sigmire was, because now that the ball is no longer coming down this path, hopefully something has happened. Something good. And indeed it has. You can actually see behind where these man serpents are, Sigmire is no more, and that's because he has finally moved on. We won't see him again until we make it to Anor Londo after Sense Fortress. And now here we go again with the 300% because you've seen this run before. Hopefully you understand it by now. If not, you can always go back to that portion of the video. I decided not to wait in the middle of that time. You can make it as long as you time the first blades right. And now we are actually heading to take on the boss. Now, before we do that, if you jump over there and you kill that giant and you hop down, you land directly on the pedestal that was holding the ball. That would be the optimal route for the one that I just took. Now I'm taking this not because I actually want to get to the bottom, but just because I want you to understand exactly where you come out at the bottom of the elevator. A huge shortcut. Again, if you're trying to leave Sense Fortress, which you will have to at some point, you are going to want to take this elevator. Now we're not even going to worry about fighting him. But you are vulnerable in the elevator, so make sure if he is swinging, just block it. I don't know that you can roll in the elevator. I should have tried that. But now we're going to take on the Iron Golem. So we're going to climb to the top of this tower, and then there's going to be a quick cut. Actually, we're going to move into another dream sequence. He put his air quotes on for that one, because I want to show you two different ways of taking on the Iron Golem. The second attempt is actually a pretty standard approach, but this first one, we're not going to fight him. Someone's going to fight him, but we're not. We're going to head over to this tower, and you must be human, of course, and we're going to summon Iron Tarkus. Some of you may have actually heard of Iron Tarkus. He is a bit of a legend in Dark Souls, and you're about to see why a lot of people consider him to be such. If you recognize his armor, the shield, and that greatsword that he's wielding, you wouldn't be mistaken to think that he is one of the Knights of Bereniki. In fact, many people have called him one of the generals of that army. And believe me, it makes sense. Because I would follow this guy into battle. I would follow this guy into battle knowing full well I wouldn't have to do anything. So we're going to run in there, and we're not actually going to be fighting him. We just wanted to get Iron Tarkus' attention onto the Golem. And now we're going to sit back and enjoy the show. If you thought that Solaire and Lautrec did a number on those gargoyles, think again. Look at him stunlock him. It's a thing of beauty. Now we're going to do this again, but we're not going to do it as well as Tarkus does. Look at him deftly avoid that axe swing. Now I was a bit worried that he wasn't going to get knocked off here. But he didn't. He recovered. One more hit left. Let's see who wins. Like there was any question. And with that, we get the core of an Iron Golem and a humanity. The core of an Iron Golem can be turned into a Golem Axe if you combine it with a +10 hand or battle axe, or you can turn it into a Dragonbone Fist if you combine it with a +10 cestus or claw. But now, back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. But for our fight, we'll go ahead and buff our Claymore with Magic Weapon. We're going to two-hand it for maximum effectiveness. And now we're just going to charge straight at him and then strafe out of the way of this blast because we want to get behind him and we want to attack his ankles. I mean, he's a giant. What else can we do? But you can see with a little bit of damage on each ankle, he does begin to stagger, and if you do equal damage on both ankles, he will actually fall for quite a bit of time. This is a very clear reference or even homage to Demon Souls when you fight the Tower Knight, where you also attack the ankles. Now, if you actually time it and angle it correctly, the Iron Golem will fall off the bridge, getting you an instant kill. I tried to go for it. Unfortunately, he was not cooperating. But anyway, as long as you can make him sit down, the fight is pretty trivial. We do kill him a little bit faster than Tarkus, but just not with the same finesse. And that's going to wrap up Sen's Fortress, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you learned something, leave me a comment below letting me know. If I missed something, you have to let me know that too. I will catch you guys in the next episode, which may or may not be in Orlando.